Breaking It Down. I'm your host, Guy Bailog, and today I'm here with Alpena City Council member Dan Mitchell. Dan, thanks for being here.
Thank you for asking me.
So, Dan, I guess, and I did already say what office. I spoiled that. What office you're in? What's your background?
My background is 20 years in the military, Air Force and such, and then I've living above the bridge in Sault Ste. Marie, Kinross areas like this. I was Kinross Heritage DPW advisory. Then I was on the Planning Commission for 6 years, and then elected twice to the Township Board up there. We moved down here in 2014 to be full-time grandparents, and I still wanted to know what was going on in my communities like this, so I got on the Planning Commission here. 4 years later, I was asked to run for City Council, and I got elected, and was just reelected here in November.
And what were the issues, I guess? Like, why were you running? Why did you decide to run? What kind of issues were laying out there when you were first getting into things in
You
Alpena?
talking about in the city here,
Yes,
or up there?
the city of Alpena. Yeah.
City of Alpena. Well, the first thing was really the water issue was the big one, because having been in DPW and the things up above the bridge, I could not understand why the cost, what was the problems. We owned the facility. Why were there so many problems with it? And the first thing that I did was I got into the 1977 agreement, and I saw how it wasn't written well.
So, with the water issue, you're talking about the lawsuit that's currently going on with Alpena.
Correct.
What is kind of the background of that? Because I feel like a lot of people don't really know what's going on. They see the lawsuit, they see it's ongoing. It seems like it's taking a while. It seems like it's costly. Like, what's the background? What kicked that off?
It kicked off, especially in 2014, with a rate increase that happened. That the township decided that they're a wholesaler and they don't have to pay that increase.
The Township of Alpena.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, the city, Alpena's township. And so that's where it really started off from, and you just kept going and going, and the further they did come up with it, the further behind they got on the bills, if you will. And then there was late fees and everything else that went along with that, and it got up quite high. The numbers is like this, which was one of the reasons why one of the judges had directed that the township had to fund an escrow account to, if they lost the lawsuit, that they would have to pay for it out of the escrow accounts like this. But that's really where it came about. And no matter how much the city might compromise on something like this, the township wanted more. Now, what was worked on towards that was going into the water authority. But the problem with the authority, we got pretty darn close to having one. It's just that, again, the city was expected to concede something, whereas the township wasn't. And the program was supposed to go for 10 years and see if it was still viable, and then go from there. We wanted to be able to maintain administration of the water system in case it did fall apart, that we're not having to go back and rehire someone, or people didn't know what the history, background, whatever was going into it. So that was our requirement, was that we would still be in administration mode of it. But that's where it fell apart and went back to the courts again. So this most recent thing here came about. We did have an initial meeting Monday, and there were some questions and things about it. So that's the reason that when we were in closed session coming out, we did not have any motions or votes or anything else like this. That request went back to the township to see if they would work with us on that portion there. Well, apparently they did. So we had our special meeting Wednesday, and after we got done through there was, of course, a requirement that there was going to be a joint press release come out about the thing like this. And that way both sides are getting the information right at the same time.
Is it common for a local government to sue another government? I think that's quite odd to a lot of people.
Most instances it's very unusual, but because one was utilizing the utilities of another and then deciding that they weren't going to, that they were a wholesaler and that they weren't going to pay this. And then this last court thing with Judge Black was, he sided with the township and says, okay, they are a wholesaler. They should have said that in the agreement back in 1977, which is number one item that I found wrong with it when I looked through it. So in 2027, it comes the 50-year point and a renegotiation of the agreement, and there's going to be a lot of changes.
So is it my understanding that there's kind of a two-part to this, that one part may have been solved, but there still is an ongoing lawsuit?
The first part was the lawsuit from was the years from 2014 to 2017. And those were the most expensive points because they were so much further back and there was a lot more late fees or non-payments and the whole thing like this. There was a lot more money owed at that time. The second lawsuit got filed, I believe it was this year, and it covered years 2018 through 2024. And we had to do it because if we didn't do it this year, then statute of limitations would have run out. And then we could not recoup any monies lost at that point. So that's where we are.
Is there a reason it's taking so long? I think and again, the court system, things can just take long. I get that too. But over that many years, that seems quite dramatic.
Well, it depends on the arguments by the lawyers in the court systems like this. But mostly it is individual negotiations, city to city, trying to work through these things, and you go back to the court to try to get things, because the court orders us to go through mediations and stuff like this, and so you're arguing back and forth, and if you just can't get it worked out, then you got to go back into court. This last time, Judge Black had kicked us to mediation with Judge Green, I think her name was, and they worked a lot of the stuff out with her, and so that's where we got. And I'm personally very happy that we did this. The second part is hopefully utilizing what we've learned in here. The big thing, if you sit there and read through all this, is water models. There is a formula there for everything of how they come up with the rates that are paid and such. It's not an arbitrary number. It's by the size of the pipes and the flows and everything else. So I want personally full disclosure out what has been going on for the whole time, closed sessions and everything else. That's what I would like to see out there.
In closed sessions, I think a lot of people have questions over that of when kind of everyone has to leave the room and certain things are discussed. What is a closed session? I guess?
The closed session is when you are either going over with your lawyer to determine legal strategy of how to go about procedures in the court itself when you're going over things. Closed sessions can be used for anything for personnel issues in your city or your townships like this, to discuss that, because until there's something worked out, you don't, I'm not going to say dirty laundry, but it's information that doesn't really need to be out in the public. It is not the public good, Kathy, because personnel issues are that personal.
So there is a benefit to kind of having a closed session for certain issues.
It is, but you should use it as little as possible.
And so you're calling for, once this is all over, kind of everything just out in the open.
Air it all.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to see.
I want to ask you, well, I should to finish that too. Do you any idea of when this might come to an end finally on everything?
Before as the second one, the first one is done with.
Mm-hmm.
The divvying up of money is like it's being taken care of. What we were moving about on Monday was, with this ruling, or with this being done, so much money comes back to the city and percentage of interest accrued on the escrow account. But the other portion for the 2018, 2017 actually, to 2018 in that area, that it requires some additional monies, but not quite as much. And we had said that for good faith, we would like to see $300,000 stay in the escrow account. They came back and they actually said for good measures like this, we're going to do $500,000. So that's good. So once everything else is worked out, then whatever gets paid out of that. The remainder goes back to the townships like this.
So it could be wrapped up within the year even.
Oh yeah.
Potentially, okay.
If it's not, we're going to
try to scoot along. I want to ask you about DPI, because that seems like a huge issue that definitely affected Alpena. I guess what's the background of that? What why did DPI have to close? I know a lot of people think that there was back taxes. It seems like there's a lot of rumors and everything. What is kind of the story behind that?
I guess it just wasn't feasible anymore for them. It wasn't anything to do with the city. What perturbed me the most about DPI was they said, well, you didn't come in to discuss this zoning issues with us. Says about as much as you guys discuss closing the factory with the city or discussing it with your employees when you lock them out.
Hmm.
So you can't really go in that like there. I think that they went through a lot of expense with the fires, the smoke, the smells, the sounds, all this stuff like this, having to play with ego with the state of Michigan, all these kind of things, and it was not getting any better in that situation. So I think the powers that be that weren't necessarily here decided it just wasn't worth to keep the place open.
You know, the state seems to have a fascination with funding corporations around the state, including trying to fund the Chinese battery plant. Was there ever any talk about the state helping DPI out? I mean, they've been giving subsidies and tax breaks to all these other corporations. I mean, do you know if that was ever a thought?
I have no idea. Nothing that would ever came across.
Nothing that ever came across the city, no.
No, not that I know of. Now, I know it had been discussed a number of times concerning the rezoning. It's like this. I don't know the history that much about, well, I guess it was prior Abitibi, and then, I don't know how they got the property. I think it was something like 1957, and then they went from that into the DPI. I was always wondering, why is it so on the water, but it wasn't that time. It wasn't a tourist mecca kind of thing like this. But there was a lot of good property that was utilized for dirty purposes.
What do you think the purpose will be for DPI going forward? Do you think someone's going to buy it and reuse it for something else, or?
They could. It just won't be in heavy industry. Because that was what the rezoning did. It changed it to waterfront, which can be mixed use by right. There's a term in there for zoning. It's like it's by right. There's a whole listing of things that can go in.
You said heavy industry, though. What do you mean by that?
Heavy industry is those smoke producers or whatever. Like heavy industry is just what. Wholesom's a heavy industry. Mm-hmm. Okay, the forge over there on 11th, when it was operational, was a heavy industry, and this was a heavy industry. Light industry could be assembly, like Omni. That's a light industry. You could have light industries such as incubators for startups, so like this.
So with the passage of this rezoning, DPI is not, the old DPI would never really come back,
No.
Nothing like that.
Now, my question to DPI at the time was, if you were so concerned about the sale, then why didn't you try to put it up for sale while you were still open? But they wanted it to stay I2, but that would have meant that if it was sold as I2, that those people who bought it could do heavy industry and not be stopped. So that was the reason I said, why didn't you try to, or you can try to do your auctions by doing developers getting in there to what they could use the thing for. I had pushed for mixed use because over by Wholesome, no one's going to want to put condos up there with their balconies facing the cement plant. So you can do a light industry there. Then you go to the green belt of trees. It's like this. Then you go from there into the commercial area, and then you can go over there by the water and such like this and put apartments and condos and whatever else you want to build out there. It's like this public access, all these kind of stuff. We got 6,000 feet of beachfront out there. So there's all sorts of possibilities what can be done. It's not going to be done in the next 6 months. It's not going to be done in the next year. It's going to take a while.
What's on the agenda, I guess, since there's, with city council, a couple changes, what's on the agenda going forward for the next 2 years?
We've worked so much on this other stuff that we have a number of things that the ABC agencies of the state postponed us on. That was the Culligan Plaza, and that was the bathrooms at Bayview Park, and that was the bathroom pavilion over at Duck Park, a variety of things like this. I think one of the big ones right now is we just recently had a visioning meeting with McCray Park, the Lions, people in the city. It's like this. To the improvements to be done at McCray Park. It is old. A lot of work hasn't been done on there, and you know you've got a lot of people that live on the north side, and they should have just as good parks as there are in the neighborhoods on the south side or elsewhere around the city. It's like this. There's always been a concern that well we don't sometimes feel like we're part of the city, but they're very much part of the city, and I push very much for that. I pushed very hard for the Second Avenue, and there's a lot of streets that need a lot of work over there. So we've had a lot of work done on our south side streets. Now let's put the money into the north side streets.
Well, Dan, thank you for being here. We appreciate it, and hopefully everyone got to learn something from what you shared with us today.
Well, I hope so too. Myself, I believe in educating the public, giving them the information, let them make their own minds up like this. And so don't ever hesitate, one, to communicate with us on the city council. Our names and faces are up there on the Facebook site and websites like this. And the same thing goes for you if you hear anything you need more answers for.
We'd love to be back.
Thank you very much.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra My Pillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm going to make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic My Pillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm going to offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen size My Pillow for just $18.88. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use My Pillows for only $9.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size My Pillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.